Hello, good afternoon. My name is Josh Lockheed. I'm the training evangelist here at QuoteWerks, and I appreciate everyone joining me here today. We're here today to specifically talk about the QuoteWerks Layout Designer. Now, looking at our polls that we presented here at the beginning of the meeting, it looks like we've got a varied tenure of individuals. Some of you are evaluating the software, while some of you have been working with the software for quite a while. I did also notice that we have mostly desktop users here today, which is great. We also have some QuoteWerks web users. Both QuoteWerks desktop and QuoteWerks web users will be able to leverage the Layout Designer currently, as it is the tool that is used to create quote layouts, document layouts in general, actually, although today we'll be focusing specifically on quotes. And that is done again in the QuoteWerks desktop. Looks like we've got about 50% of you that have used the Layout Designer before and 50% of you that have not. For those that have not, welcome to the Layout Designer. I hope you are able to take what you learned today and translate it into starting to use the Layout Designer. And for those of you that have used it already, I welcome you to engage with us today and add some color, and hopefully you can leave today with some additional tips and tricks as to how to use it. Another note here, just on the housekeeping, we do have our GoToWebinar that we're using as our platform today. Actually just opening the questions box now on my screen. If you do have any questions, go ahead and type them into the questions box. They'll pop up and I'll address them as they come in. And if for any reason I'm not able to address your question on today's call, we can always follow up afterwards. You can email me at community@quoteworks.com. And I'm also going to be sending out a recording of this webinar tomorrow. And the webinar has a number of different resources that I highlight as well. So that email will not only have the recording that you can review yourself or share with others that weren't able to join, but you'll also be able to go in and review the different resources that will be presented throughout the course of today's webinar. So without further ado, what is a layout? Well, a layout is essentially a document template. When we talk about documents, we're talking about quotes, orders, invoices, purchase orders, sales orders. But the focus of today is going to be using the Layout Designer to create quote templates. Now, this is essentially the ability to customize the print layout for quotes, orders, invoices, management reports, and more, as I just mentioned. And you can control what you want to have included on the quote, as well as how they're displayed. And that's the really big thing here about the Quote Layout Designer, is that you have granular control over how the things that are included in the quote workbook are translated into the presentation to your customer. Again, this is all based on the output of the PDF document, and it's important to mention that when we're talking about layouts, there are two different ways that you can work with layouts. The first is going to be with the FPC file format or with Word documents, doing a word merge. Today, we're going to be focused on working with the FPC documents, which are the standard file formats for a Layout Designer. Word document merging is something that we do have content available out there as well. So typically used for like longer form proposals, statements of works, things of that nature. We again have additional documentation. Feel free to review that. But again, today we're going to be focusing on those FPCs, which are the document templates for our layouts. And also important to mention here, I did see that at least one of you was utilizing Quote Valet to deliver your quotes. We are not talking about the Quote Valet templates. So there's another thing that you're able to do in the system, which is to go in and actually adjust the way in which the Quote Valet web page is displayed to the customer. This is not what we're going to be covering today. It's a different topic, but it's important to note that when you do send a Quote Valet quote out, it does include a link to the PDF copy of the document for records and for review. So regardless, it's going to have this PDF included, so it's always good to make sure that it's accurate, professional, and in line with what you are hoping to present to the customer. So why are layouts important? Again, this is controlling the look and feel of your printed documents, putting your right foot forward with your branding, your fonts, your colors, formatting. You can also include additional important information, whether or not it's a note, product information, terms and conditions. You can also go in and apply additional customization to the quote layout, including additional formulas or different ways of manipulating the data that you might not want to do within QuoteWerks. And really, the whole purpose of this, again, is providing professionalism, accuracy, and confidence in when you're delivering your quotes, they have what they need in the right way. So what is a layout template? A layout template is used to control the output of layouts, and this is built in the Layout Designer. And again, that's why we're here today. What we have displayed here is the print, share, publish, deliver document window, and that's where we're going to go later to go in and review our templates, our layouts, excuse me, and to go and actually work with our templates as well. You can have one that you work with, one layout, or you can have many. You can see in this particular one, there's probably about 10 different layouts in addition to the Word layouts that I have. And this is really going to be based on your company. If you have a standard way of formatting your quotes and that's okay with all your customers, that's perfectly fine. You can have just one that you rinse and repeat, or you can have a couple. You can have one for each business unit that you work in. You might have one that's focused when you sell a specific product line that you have. Really, the number of layouts that you can have is endless, and the way in that you can use them is even more great. They can be very simple, so we can create a layout that just has the list of the products and a price, or even just the price if you wanted, or you can have very complex layouts that go through and have marketing information, pictures, again, I mentioned formulas, additional calculations. Really, the complexity of these layouts is going to be determined based on what the purpose is that you're using them for. And that's, I think, another important piece, is that each of the layouts that we're developing are purpose-built and really focused on solving a particular problem, whether or not it's displaying a quote to your customers in general or displaying different types of information to different types of customers. And we do have different sample layouts available as well. So we're going to talk a bit about those sample layouts, and those are going to come into play as we continue through the webinar as well. So sample layouts are ones that come preloaded with the QuoteWerks software. So if you recently installed or upgraded the software, you would have seen a screen that says include samples. When you click include samples, it's going to include a number of the samples of the layouts that we have available. Now, in addition to those that are included, there are some more that I'll show you in a moment, but the layouts that you have and are able to use that are displayed on that print, share, deliver document window are all stored in your QuoteWerks folder in the layout folder. So just to understand kind of where they are and where they're housed, that would be where you would find them. So let's say that you have a layout that you find on our sample layouts page here, which we'll take a look at in a minute. If you wanted to, say, use that layout, all you need to do is download it and then make sure it goes into that layouts folder, and then it will display in the print, share, publish, deliver window that we just looked at. So we're just going to take a quick look at some of these sample layouts to see what's available to you. And note that here on this particular web page, we have not only our layouts, but we also have our word-based samples as well. So again, if that's something you're interested in, this information will be here as well. And note that each of these layouts is going to be displayed in a little bit different of a way. The first one here has a cover page, a summary layout, a support agreement, sales rep picture, so on and so forth. And we can actually see a template or a version of this to show us how it would be all broken down. And there's others here as well. Again, the differences here are really just based around the way that it's displayed, coloring, fonts, iconography, how much information is being displayed about the products. So for example, you can see here we've got relatively short descriptions. Here we've got very long descriptions. And then if we scroll down further, you've got this quotation here that really has no descriptions, just the product names. So again, a lot of different options for you. I would suggest if you are going to start building your own layouts or really just start delivering quotes utilizing this method, go and take a look at what's available to you, and it's a good resource for you to have. So that rounds out our sample layouts, and these allow you to very quickly customize your quotes. So in this case, I actually just saw a question come in, and it was whether or not the cover sheet is an FPC or Word file. Now, it can actually be both, depending on how you want to work it. In this case, we are dealing with, let's take a look here. This would be an FPC file. Yep. So really, they are in many ways interchangeable in the way that you might want to use them. But the quote layouts are going to be ones where you can, again, work within the QuoteWerks system and very easily call upon different fields and information coming from QuoteWerks. So again, these are samples, and there's two steps that you can take if you actually want to get up and running very quickly. The first one would be to make sure that you have your company logo included in the QuoteWerks system, and also that you have your licensee company information, which is most likely already there. I'm just going to show you this real quickly because this is a building block. You'll see here we have an example here. If you go to Tools, Options, you can change the picture or the registration information. And I am going to hop into QuoteWerks here and go to Tools, Options, and then we're going to the Company tab. And you can see here is where we could update our registration information. So this is going to pull into the quote wherever it says licensee company. And then anywhere where it says company logo, it'll be pulling in this picture here. For the sake of showing you how you can change it, I'm going to go ahead and use our Santa hat logo and hit OK. So you'll see that logo now will show up at the top of our layouts when we start designing them. So again, very quickly, very easily, if you have those two pieces of information and you populate your quote with products and with contact information, the quote itself is going to look pretty good. So just as an example, let's take a look at one of the stock layouts that we have here. And we'll take a look at our minimal, because this is the one that we're actually going to be working with. So we've selected it here, and we're going to hit preview just to take a look at what that looks like. And this is an example, again, of the minimal layout. And you can see we've got our Santa hat logo here, and we've got our company information. Again, with those two very simple changes, you could very easily take the information that you have on the quote itself and send it out. But you may also look at this and say, hey, it doesn't look exactly the way I want it to. Maybe your customers don't care about pictures. They don't care about descriptions. Maybe you want to include some additional information up top about who it was prepared by. Since this is a Dell computer, maybe you want to include your Dell certification up here at the top. Whatever the case is, again, this is just a sample. We've made those two changes. It's good to go, but we could certainly customize it further if we would like, and we're going to as we continue through. So just wanted to show you that example. And I actually just showed you a preview of what this slide is demonstrating, which is in order to go and edit and enter the Layout Designer, all you have to do is go to the Print, Share, Publish, Deliver document window. And when you hit Edit with a particular layout selected, it will open the Layout Designer in a separate window. And this is going to be where we're going to start talking a little bit more about the Layout Designer itself. And we'll kind of culminate it all into going in and doing some work within the Layout Designer as well. So within the Layout Designer, there's different tools that you're going to use. We've got the toolbar across the top, and then we're going to have our right-click menu as well. Many of the different things that you can do here in the drop-down menu or the toolbar are also going to be able to be done via this drop-down menu. It's important to know where everything is. In general, things are going to be grouped into 3 different buckets. Working with the Layout Designer itself, so save and preview, save and close, adding additional information into the quote or the layout, which would be using fields, labels, lines, pictures, so on and so forth. And then there's situations where you might want to adjust formatting, so font, color, effects, color alignment. This would be the background color here, by the way. And and then also sizing, formatting, spacing, things of that nature. So these are going to be the tools that you're going to use to actually interact with the layout designer. I'm just taking a look, and it looks like Jim uses YouTube videos through the desktop version. I was wondering when it'd be possible to include those videos in the web version. I'm not quite sure, Jim. I might be able to formulate a better response if I have some time to think about it. Jim, go ahead and send a message to community@quoteworks.com, and we'll sync up on that, but definitely ask for you. And then the question was, is there a preferred size when putting the company logo into the company tab? Typically say 200 by 200 pixels is a good size, but regardless of how large it is, it actually automatically resizes it for you too. And that's one of the good benefits of using the company logo rather than inserting a picture, which we'll show you in a little bit, is it dynamically kind of adjusts its size. But yeah, that is a good question there. All right, so let's hop back in here. My apologies for getting, I don't want to say distracted, but just want to take a look at those questions and address them as they come in, and feel free to add more as they come. Then there's some layout components I want to talk about. So we talked about the layout features or functions, so how you're actually going to work with the system. And it's also really important to understand how the layout is built. So we've got different components. We've got the report header. The report header is going to print at the beginning of the quote or the document. We've got the page header. The page header is going to print at the beginning of every page. We've got the detail sections, and the detail sections are going to be different sections based on line type that are going to print out different line types based on different filters that we set. So the detail sections at a high level control how each line type is going to be formatted based on filters that we set for each detail section. I know that might sound a bit confusing right now, but we're going to touch on it a little bit more, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. So one of the questions I had here came in was, do most people use quote forms or do they use Word-based templates? In this case, most people are using the quote templates. The quote templates are very well defined, right? They're within the system. You have pick lists of things to work with. When you're doing a word merge, it's very similar to if you were doing a mail merge, right? You have to go in and insert macros, and it'd be a matter of going into the help file, copy and pasting the macro, doing your design. It's beneficial, right? You can certainly build a quote from scratch using a word merge, but there's a lot more benefit to doing it in the layout designer. So typically what I find customers doing is for short or just regular length, regular complexity quotes, they'll use a quote layout, and then they'll use a Word document for supplemental information. So where you might have to just insert a couple fields rather than many fields, which is what we're doing here when we're creating a layout. So good question there, Andy. But again, I would say if you're designing general quotes, layout designer is the way to go. If you're building bill of materials, statements of works, longer form proposals, that's where you might want to go into the Word documents. So as I discussed here, we've got the report header, prints at the beginning of the report or the document. Page header is going to print at the top of every page. Detail sections are going to determine how our different line items or line types are printed. And then we have a report footer as well, and that's going to print at the end of the document. We can have multiple sections of each, not an issue. And we'll actually, again, take a look at that in just a minute. And then there's page footers as well. I forgot to mention those. Those are going to print at the bottom of every page. So think of it as report header, top of the page, report footers, bottom of the page, detail sections in the center, and then the page headers and page footers are only going to print at the beginning or end of each page. So another component and one of the real drivers of the layout designer is the ability to pull in fields from QuoteWerks. And there's really a dichotomy here, a relationship between labels, which are static fields that we use to identify a field. So for example, we've got QTY for our quantity column. This is just a snippet of what the layout tool looks like, right? So the labels, again, are static fields that are used to identify a field. Fields are used to populate information onto documents, and that'd be something like here, QTY total, description, unit price, extended price. Those are actual fields that are pulled from different tables that are being stored within the QuoteWerks system. And there are actually 4 main tables that we're pulling from. The first one is document headers. So document headers is going to be anything that's associated with the document itself. Think of this as you've got the quote entity or the quote object. There's going to be inside that quote things that apply to the entire quote, and then there are going to be things that apply to just the document items. So the things that apply to the entire quote are going to be things like terms, things like expiration dates, sales rep information, right? Things, again, that are associated with the entire document. So if you're in a quote and you're working with a quote, document headers are going to be anything that's not on the document items tab, essentially. Now, anything that is on the document items tab is going to be included in the document items table, and that's going to be things like the descriptions, the quantities, the prices, the extended prices, the costs, all of the things associated with those items, including line attributes and things of that nature. So you have the ability to go through and use those two. And then others that we'll use, application, this is going to be pulling from the QuoteWerks system. So for example, we talked about the licensee information, which is pulled from that registration page. That's an example of an application-based table, right? Or application data that's stored in the application table, because that's not associated with the items, it's not associated with the document, it's associated with the application itself. And then last but not least here, a majority of our contact managers do allow you to pull in additional fields from the contact manager itself as well. So if you're working with a contact manager and you do want to pull in additional information, it really can be any field from that contact manager. You would come in here, you would select contact manager, and it would give you the list of available fields that you can pull into the quote. And I don't think I've said this explicitly, right? But when we print these different fields, we're actually replacing those labels with the fields data from the QuoteWerks system. So when we actually go and hit preview or print on, let's say, this little section here, quantity total is going to be updated with the quantity total of the first line. The description is going to be updated with the description of that item for the first line, right? So it's going to insert that data into those fields when we run the quote or the document, if you will. So just to continue to expand upon what we're learning thus far, this is another example of being within the Layout Designer. We'll look at this in a little bit more detail in a second, so don't get too overwhelmed by the complexity. But thing to mention here is it executes from top to bottom. So we talked about the report header, the page header, and then the detail sections. So what this is going to do is going to go and it's going to print that report header. It's going to print the page header. It's going to go through detail section 1, and it's going to say, does the item that I am trying to print match the filter for this detail section? And if it does, it's going to print using the formatting that has been determined in the detail section itself. If it doesn't match the filter, it's going to move on to the next detail section and see if it checks in that filter. If it matches that filter, it's going to be printed with that detail section's formatting. And layouts should have only one detail section per line type. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that we are not duplicating our entries. Because again, as the detail sections run through, it's just checking to see, should I print in this detail section? What that means is if the way that our filters are designed, it is going to fit into 2 different detail sections filters. It's going to print on both of those detail sections, which means you're going to get duplicate entries on the quote. So when you're working with detail sections, it's just very important that you understand what segments or types of line types do you want to be handled differently, and then create the filters that match that arrangement. Now I've showed it here. I'm going to show you in a little bit more detail down the line, but this is an example of a filter for our detail section 3 here. So this is just for our heading lines. It says when we have a heading line, we want it to print here. And the way that we designate that, and when I say print here, I mean print with that formatting, we are going to use a line of text that says if document items, again, calling upon the document items table, and the line type equals 256. Now 256 is a designation that we have in the system for our heading fields, then it's going to print. So we're saying if document items line type equals 256, then print this line. So that means that the only thing that's going to be printed using this formatting is going to be our heading. Again, I know this is kind of complicated, but we're going to get into it a little bit more detail. A question came in here from James as to whether or not there's a way to reorder the section numbers. And James, I don't know, but I'll tell you what, we'll take a look at it when we get into the actual layout designer itself. And if we aren't able to find, we can always again follow up via that community at email. I have an inclination that there's not a way to change or reorder the section numbers, but we will find out. All right, so a little bit more on detail sections. Best practices, we want to create a filter for each detail section. And how do we do that? We're going to reference another resource that we have here, which is our developer integration notes. Now we are getting a little bit into the weeds, and I'm not going to go much further than this, but I want everyone to at least understand how things operate, right? We were talking about filters. We're filtering based on the designations that our system has for line type. So is it a product or service? Is it a comment, a subtotal, a group header, all these different items? And or line attributes. So does it have the exclude attribute, the hide price attribute? Is it a recurring product? All of these attributes are associated with each line item. And based on those line items is how you are going to create those filters. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But I wanted to at least show you where this information is because it's useful when you're creating those filters. So again, as we mentioned, if the filter matches, it's going to print in that detail section. And I'm going to show you a couple of good examples, ones that you actually might want to go and open up in your own install of QuoteWerks just to see how they work. And I will tell you the best way to learn how to use this tool and the best way to learn best practices is to just do it. We'll talk about cloning layouts in a little bit. Just make sure to clone the layout before you start messing around with stuff. But I found it that the easiest way to learn is to just get in there and to see the samples and then to work off of those and kind of get your footing. So I am bringing you back into QuoteWerks here, and I am going to hit the deliver icon once again, and that opens the print, share, publish, deliver document window. And I wanted to show you first the sunlight layout, and we'll just preview it. Take a look what it looks like with our document itself, right? We've got our Christmas logo up there. The layout's a little bit different than what we've seen before. We've got an introductory note, and then we've got our products. And you can see that our heading line is formatted differently than our product lines. And there's not many different line types here, but you can see based on the way that we have our detail section set up and the formatting defined in the layout is what is determining how these things are printing on the document. All right, I see a couple questions here, just one second. All right. Greg, I'm sorry, your note about I didn't show how to get to that section. I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you just clarify, I'll be happy to show you again. Okay, and Andy mentioned something here, which is that he finds it helpful to change the background color of the detail sections while he's designing so he can keep things organized. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that is a big part of this, right, is while you are in the tool and you're working with it, staying organized is going to help you a lot. I just showed you the print of the sunlight, but I want to show you now the actual note. And Greg, I think this might actually answer your question because you were talking about the formulas. And these aren't necessarily formulas so much as they are filters, right? Because I need to make that designation because you can do formulas, which are a little bit more involved, not going to be covered today. What we're talking about are filters. So again, this is very complicated, but I want you to take out a couple things from it, right? We have our report header, we've got our page header, and then we've got our detail sections. You can see this particular one, this is our sunlight layout, has, I think, 14 detail sections. What that means is based on the line types and the line attributes, lines can print in 14 different ways. That might be overkill for some people. And as a matter of fact, I think it's really more here as a representation of all the different things that can be done. But I wanted to represent that to you that like there is the ability to get very granular with this. And if we were to take a look at each of these sections, we'll start with a simple one here. Right, so detail section 10. If we right click and we click on filter, we can actually see what the filter is. And what it says here is if document items line type equals 64 or 128, then we want you to use detail section 10. So what that means is any products that match that criteria are going to print using the detail section 10 formula or formatting, excuse me. And again, these can get very complex. So here you've got a recurring product or service line without a first payment. This particular filter gets pretty long, right? We're not going to get into too much depth as to how you would create these filters, but I will tell you that there are 3 really solid videos that you should check out, and those are the beginner, intermediate, and advanced layout designer videos that are on our website. Okay, let's take a look here. All right. Let me now go back into minimal. We actually already took a look at. Another good one, if you're going to just look at samples, is a minimal one, and we're gonna actually do a lot with this in a few minutes. But if you look, the minimal one actually only uses 1 detail section, so you don't have to get complicated with it. Just know that you're going to have a little bit more of a basic layout. The formatting is going to be very similar for different line items or line types, excuse me. But just again, I wanted to show you good examples of a very simple quote with 1 detail section and then one with a ton of complexity and multiple detail sections. All right, so as an example of a filter, I think this might again kind of get to what you were asking for, Greg, a little bit, is example of how a filter might be written. We get into a lot more detail in the videos, so check those out. And I think I might even, yep, I call them out here on the slide. Now, I say we don't cover them in detail here in the webinar. We certainly don't, but take a look at what we have available to you, and there's a lot of resources available online. And then you've always got the team here as well. The tech support team will be happy to help if you need it. So just to review, resources that you have available to you, sample layouts, the help files are also very useful. And this is going to be where I think some of the things that you're looking for are held. So for example, if we look at the tables and fields, this is going to show us all of the different tables and then the fields that are available for them. So for example, this is the document headers. And again, the complexity is pretty great. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here, but these are all of the different fields that you can pull from the document headers table. And one thing that I'll point out is that you'll see ones with like an ampersand, and then you'll see ones that do not have an ampersand. The ampersand just designates that it's a macro and it's taking multiple fields and putting them together, whereas the other ones are a one-to-one relationship. Again, all this should come together as we actually get in and start working with the layout designer itself. Another one is, this is a list of all the different macros that are available as well. So just kind of pulls out just the macros. And also here you have the ones for our Microsoft Word templates as well. Okay, so those are resources that will be included in the email that I send out to you. And we will go from there. Yeah, so Andy asked if we had any additional customer shared quote layout templates besides the ones I've already showed. Nope, those are the ones that are available. So the sample layouts as well as the ones that are preloaded as well. Julie, I did see your note there about adding a page break. There are a couple different ways to do it. I'm not sure if I know exactly how to do what you're looking for. But again, if you want to just go ahead and email community@support.com, I can make sure I understand the question in its entirety, and then I can show you how. Again, there's a lot of different things that you can do, and explaining them in a short webinar is kind of difficult sometimes. So let's take the conversation offline, and I can get you some better questions or better answers to your questions. But let's just review some best practices here. Good thing to do before you go and start designing a layout is just take a look at an existing quote that you have, maybe a competitor's quote. Take a piece of paper and draw out what you want it to look like, or look at our sample layouts. It's really going to help you to figure things out. Very important that if you are using a sample layout and you're going and you're editing it via the deliver window, make sure to clone it. If you make a mistake or anything, you want to have that original layout to go and fall back to. That being said, you could always download another version from the website, but just follow best practices and create a clone. You've seen me do it a couple times already here using the save and preview. Really useful to go and back and see how things are being executed on the layout, the changes that you're making. Also mentioned word merging. And then we do have our technical support team that is here to assist. So if it's something about like, how do I do this? Where do I find this field? So on and so forth. Technical support is happy to help you out. Give them a ring, ask your question. Again, if it's more of a how-to or just showing you where to go to do something, not an issue whatsoever. But if you do need additional assistance, let's say that you don't even want to worry about the layouts, you just want to provide us with that hand-drawn version of the layout and we can replicate it, you can do that as well. So we do provide professional services for layout design. Again, focus today is really empowering you to do it yourself, but if you do want to leverage our team, it's available, and you could always reach out to the sales group to let you know what that looks like. All right. I know there's a lot of information we're covering today. I appreciate everyone hanging in with me. We're now going to take the stuff that we've learned and put it into action. I've got a couple specific things I want to show you how to do in the Layout Designer. And if there's anything else that you'd like to see, as we've already seen, I might not have the answer, but I will certainly get it to you, and we can try and demonstrate the different things that you might have interest in looking at. So these are the different things that we're going to cover. We're going to cover navigating the Layout Designer. We already looked at the logo and company information. We're going to look at changing coloring, adding or removing some fields, adding or removing some pictures, adding a detail section, and then adding some introduction notes. So depending on how much time we have and how quickly we get through these topics, we may or may not cover all of them. We may cover more, but I wanted to make sure that I included some of these very specific things. So today we are going to start with our quote minimal template. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit edit. Nope. You're going to first hit clone, because you want to make sure that we are not working with the live version of it. And I'm just going to name this webinar. And again, not just quotes. You can create layouts for a number of different types of documents, but we are demonstrating how to do a quote today. And you can see now that I've created that clone, it's now here on the list. I can click on it and I can hit edit. And here we are. I feel like this entire presentation has been for this one moment, right? When we actually get into the Layout Designer and start messing around with things a little bit. So I already talked about the drop-down menus, the toolbar that we have up here, the right click. I'm going to show you how we use some of those. But what we've got here is a pretty basic quote layout. We've got our company logo, which is being pulled from that field that I showed you earlier. Our licensee company and licensee inline address getting pulled from that registration page. So all these things here that you see displayed on the page are really one of two things. They're either a label. So for example, a field like this, which is static text that is identifying what a field is, or we have the field itself, which is going to be like these items here, which are pulling from the document itself. So one of the quickest and easiest things that you might want to do, let's say again that you've gone in and you've changed your logo, you have the correct licensee company information in there. Let's say you don't have a need for pictures, you don't want long form descriptions. Very easy to go in and remove those, right? Very easy. Same thing if you wanted to change the color scheme here. So if I wanted to say change the color scheme for my headings or my labels, all I would need to do is hit Control, click on the different ones that I want to change, which is going to be all of the labels. And then we're going to go to color. We could just as easily right click as well. And we're going to change the background color. So we want to use a background color. We want that color. In this case, we're going to make it red. Very quick, very simple. We're also going to change the color of our font to white so it pops on the red. And that's there. And then we're going to just change the background color here as well, because it looks like this section background is colored as well. All right. So there we go. Very quickly, we've made a couple changes. Looks like our coloring on these didn't necessarily come in. So let's go ahead and just make these white. And you know what, let's also make the quote up here black to better match our formatting here. And let's also format our line to also be that black color. Okay, perfect. All right. So we've got a working version here of our newly designed quote. And for many people, this is going to be perfect, right? This is going to provide you with what you need. You've got your logo, you've got your company information, you've got all the information pulling in from the document, including the payment options, and should be good to go. That being said, there's a lot more customization that we can do here, and we're going to talk about that as well. So here we are back on the document, and I just figure in this case we can show how to add some different fields. So let's go ahead and add a picture for our sales reps. Let's say we want to include sales rep information. Sales rep information is not associated with the items on the document. It's associated with the headers. So we would click the document headers and we would go down to where it says sales rep. Now, again, important to note, the ampersand is going to be our macros. and then these are going to be our standard fields. The macros are always going to list first, so if you don't see what you want at first, there's going to be a second list alphabetically here that you can review. So here we've got sales rep picture. Okay, just going to go ahead and put that right there. So what that's going to do is it's going to take in the My Preferences, there's a sales rep picture option, and whoever the sales rep is associated with this document, their picture will be printed on the document. And before I show you that, let's add just a little bit more information. So I just clicked the label button. You can see I have a little checked box here. I'm going to put that here. And for this particular field, we're going to make this our prepared by area. All right, so that's a label, static text. Now what we want to do is pull in another field. And in this case, we'll say we'll include our sales rep name. So sales rep full name. And let's say we wanted to just change that font to be regular. Go ahead and put OK. And let's say that we also wanted to add their email address. Just another field, just an example. So sales rep email. Now, one cool tool that I want to show you that is very useful, especially when you're adding and manipulating fields, is if we were to click on this first field, we can go to Format and set active style. So what it's going to do is it's going to take all the formatting associated with that particular document or this particular field, and it's going to copy it. So if we go to another field and we go to Format, Apply Active Style, you can see that it updates that field with the style that we have set. So that's a really useful tool. Copy active style, apply active style, great. I wanted to change this back just to not be bolded, and we'll show you an update here as well. So in addition to having our colors changed, we now have our document here. We've got our prepared by with our picture, and that picture again is not a static picture that's been loaded. It's actually been brought in from a field that we have. Now, we could come in and kind of close up the gaps between these words and stuff. I can certainly do that. I'm not going to take the time to do it today because we're kind of strapped for time, but I do want to make sure we cover a couple other things. So just another a note here. Let's say that on a particular layout, you want to make sure that you're talking about your certification with a particular company, or you want to include a picture that denotes something. You can just click Picture, go into your files. It's always best if you're going to be including a picture to include it in your QuoteWerks Images folder. And let's just say that this was a Dell preferred partner designation. Now this is actually like a Support Plus agreement, so maybe not the best to include there, but I'm showing you the example of you can also include static pictures on here as well. Again, you just want to make sure they're included in your images folder, and those will also show up on the document here as well. So you can see that our image has now been added. Now, I do want to show you how to add a detail section and hopefully bring together some of the different concepts that we've discussed. So I'm going to come in, right-click, Insert Section, and I'm going to put it in Detail Section 2. So now we've got an entire new section for Detail Section 2. Now again, you can come through and design your line types in whatever way you want. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a detail section just for my header. So I copied and pasted the description field. I click, and that's going to paste it right in here. But for this field, I want to make sure that our font is bold. And I also want my font to be bigger so that it really pops. Maybe not that big. And Just also go in and change the background of this as well, because we want it to also look a little bit different than our standard fields. For the purposes today, we're just going to go ahead and use this salmon color. Now, it might not be the most visually appealing, but it's at least demonstrating what we're doing here. And then for color, I'm going to go ahead and make this white. Okay, so let's take a look. It should look perfect. Not quite. And the reason for that is because we have not yet set up our filters. And this is why I wanted to make sure that, that we talked about this, right? Is by not applying our filter, our item is going in and saying, do I match detail section 1? Yes, I do. Let me print using detail section 1. Do I match detail section 2? Yes, I do. Let me print using detail section 2. This is, again, where filters come into play. We're going to show you how to clean this up pretty quickly. So for our detail section 2, we want to create a filter. So we're going to right-click on the detail section and click filter. And in this case, we want that if the document items line type equals 256, because based on our application developer notes, we know that 256 is how we designate a heading. We're going to hit that, and this is going to make sure that only headings are going to print there. And then we also need to go through and adjust our detail section 1 just to make sure that everything else prints here. So if document items equals, and in this case we're doing does not equal 256, we should now be in a situation where we have resolved our issue, and it looks like we have. Again, we could go in and readjust the sizing, change the borders. There's a lot of different things we could do to adjust the way that it's displayed here. But I think for the most part, I've demonstrated how you can manipulate things around and how you can utilize detail sections as well. I had a question come in as to whether or not this is going to be recorded. It is, and you'll get an email as long as you're registered. You get an email with a recording. All right, I have a couple questions that have come in. I'm just reviewing them. I'm not sure that I'll be able to explain them in full detail right now. One of them is regarding line items touch the line at the bottom. Not quite sure what we're referring to there. Sorry, Paul. Again, you want to just email support at, that would be great. Now, Greg asked, when writing the formula/filter 256 references what? That's going back to what we reviewed earlier in the application developer integration notes. So what we're saying when we're saying that the document items line type equals is we're just calling upon this document items table, and we're saying that the line type is equal to 256, so a heading specifically. Sorry if I wasn't clear about that, Greg. So if we wanted to create a detail section that is only going to determine how our products and services are going to print, we would use 1, comments 2, subtotal 4, so on and so forth. And then if we were using line attributes, we could create a string if document items dash line attributes and then equals, and if it matches one of these, it would be included in that filter as well. All right. Let's take a look here. Now, I will say some of the things that we do within the Layout Designer take some kind of adjusting, and it could take some time just to make things look exactly the way you want. Now, looks like one of the questions we had was just the spacing here on these items. That's something that I could go in and adjust, but I'm not going to do it because I don't have the time to today. But there are ways in which we can make it so that these lines are a little bit larger and not making them touch. I don't see any other questions. And again, my apologies if I missed any of your questions. I think I got most of them. There were quite a few, so I do appreciate that. But that being said, I believe that is about it for our presentation. I do, again, have a number of different resources available for you here. Two things I'll point out. Again, send us a message, community@QuoteWerks.com. Definitely a great place to go. And send messages to if you've got questions or if you just got any information that you want to be expounded upon. The question is, where do you find the videos? That's a good question. I appreciate that being asked. Let me pull over my browser here. So if you go to the QuoteWerks website, that's QuoteWerks web, not QuoteWerks.com. So if you go to the QuoteWerks website, QuoteWerks.com, and then go to support, and then videos. Really useful trick is the search bar up here. If you type in layout, scroll down. These are the 3 videos that I referred to today, which is the beginner, intermediate, and advanced videos here. In regards to the webinar, this will also, like I said, be sent out via recording to emails to anyone that's gotten registered for this. But they're also going to be hosted here on our website as well on the same page. And let me see here. Yeah, I also wanted to just note the fact that we do also have an email that we send out on a regular basis called the Tips and Tricks email. If you're not already signed up and have any interest in it, this is a monthly email that goes out that talks about different specific things that you can do within QuoteWerks. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat so everybody can see it. Feel free to sign up if you'd be interested in getting those monthly emails. And then let's take a look here. We also have a regular webinar cadence, so keep an eye out for additional webinar invites coming. We just kicked off a pain point webinar series. We have one on Thursday, and we'll continue to do 2 to 3 webinars a month moving forward. So again, I know this is a lot of content. I know it's a lot of information and probably questions as well that have been left unanswered. My apologies for that. But again, support, great place to go as well. You can always reach out to the community at QuoteWerks.com. And I really appreciate everyone's time. We're at the top of the hour. We'll go ahead and end the webinar today, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day.